evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. My name is Fouad Baker. I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us. And of course, my colleague Luqman Shadrack for taking you through that first part of the show. Now, the United Nations Security Council is set to meet over the decision by the global body's top court calling for Israel to prevent genocidal acts in Gaza. The meeting is scheduled for today and was called by Algeria, whose Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that it would give a binding effect to the pronouncement of the ICJ on the provisional measures imposed on the Israeli occupation. Now, the question is, will Israel still abide by this decision? And what will be the outcome of the Security Council? Joining us now, I'd like to welcome a Palestinian lawyer based in Lebanon, Fouad Baker. Fouad, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation. Wa alaikum salam.
It's an absolute pleasure. Fouad, let's start off, of course, with this ruling. We've seen that there's still being continuous bombing happening in Khan Yunis. It's clear Israel is not really taking this ICJ ruling seriously.
First, I think the state of South Africa for its constant and permanent support for the Palestinian people who have been suffering from the injustice for more than 75 years. Secondly, I salute the brotherly of Palestinian people who is the in South Africa people who stood by the rights of the Palestinian people represented of the establishment independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital and the return of refugees, Palestinian refugees, and implementation of international legitimacy resolutions. The state of South Africa presented a wonderful legal case, was able to prove the extent of the genocide in Palestine, and it was able to move the people of rebel the Zionist narrative that was lying by saying that Palestine is a land without people for a people without land. This appeal proved that the Palestinian people are an ethnic group of the indigenous people of the occupied Palestinian territory and confirmed the criminal intent of genocide by the Israeli occupying state. History will record that the state of South Africa and the people in the South Africa are the only country from 75 years that has been able to directly prosecute the Israeli occupation state for its crimes before the International Court of Justice. Since the decision of the International Court of Justice cannot be implemented until after a ceasefire and the entry of the humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. Some imperialist countries froze the relief support for UNRWA, the United Nations Organization for the Relief of the Palestinian People, which indicates the deep alliance between the terrorist state and the crimes of genocide with the countries which claims democracy and application of human rights. If Israel does not submit its report within the specific period, it must go to the Security Council to impose economic sanctions and diplomatic boycott on its considering it a country that violates international law and commits crimes against humanity, genocide, war crimes. So I believe that the legal action began since the announcement of the International Court of Justice decision. It cannot be completed without a political process supporting its implementation and the legal support of the South Africa. The state of South Africa has put the international community before its responsibilities, and it is now necessary to implement the decision of the International Court of Justice.
Uh, Fouad, what are you
I
hoping?
would
Yeah, continue.
I would have been better for the imperialist countries supporting Israel to cut off the funding and arms support rather than cut off aid of the Palestinian people.
Fouad, what are you hoping from the Security Council meeting? Because you've mentioned that the economic sanctions could be, of course, one of those potential options. But you look at the Security Council, how it sets the three countries, United States, United Kingdom, France, they may be reluctant to impose those sanctions. But surely something has to give, isn't it? Because if these sanctions are not going to be imposed, then Israel will act with impunity and just continue doing what they're doing. And that is, of course, taking the innocent lives of the people of Gaza.
Thank you for this question. The battle is now mixed between the politics and law. But the most important thing is what happened outside the International Criminal Court, where millions listened to the suffering of the Palestinian people, and this is what creates people for the international European society, American society, with the Palestinian people. Now, the Security Council, if the USA or Britain or France will take the veto, so we'll go to the the General Assembly, United Nations, and by applying the decision 377, it's the Union for Peace, and to obligate Israel to apply the decisions of the ICJ. So now we hope that South Africa will fight the legal battle until the end, and we are aware of the American and European pressures and the threats. It is also preferable to open the door for the volunteer lawyers to assist and coordinate in the legal field, specifically with the Palestinians, and to invite all countries in order to become a party to the advocacy against Israel. And now the Arab states also as Algeria. Now Algeria is a member at the Security Council, and now this is a political part and not just a part.
Fouad, we always talk about the necessity for a ceasefire. Now, unfortunately, the ICJ did not rule that Israel needs to abide by a ceasefire. We've seen talks happening, of course, with Hamas, Qatar. You know, there's a talks of the truce. Obviously, the truce is not a lasting solution because it's something that is temporary. But how important is the implementation of a ceasefire going to be right now? Because as we talk, it's over 26,000 lives that have been lost in Gaza. There has to be a ceasefire, isn't it? And it has to happen now. And only the United Nations can really go ahead and enforce that ceasefire on Israel.
First, cannot anyone cannot any state do anything against the imperialism, against the Israeli occupation now, just USA. So USA have have le clé against or to stop the war now. The Palestinian people is without medicine, without food, without electricity, So the humanitarian case is very complicated and it's very difficult in Gaza. So now the children really eat their blood, eat their body part, no water, no anything in Gaza. So the ICJ now, it's the rule of ICJ. It's a plan relief to enter the humanitarian aids of the to Gaza. But the ceasefire now, it no can any negotiation without to ceasefire first, to go the occupation Israeli army outside of Gaza. Third, to be the exchange of the prisoners operation. Now the Israel refuse all the human rights of Palestinian, and the problem or the main problem is the genocide of Israel and what happened in Gaza.
Fouad, shukran so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
That's Fouad Baker, a Palestinian lawyer based in Lebanon. Of course, we'll be keeping an eye on what happens in that Security Council setting. Do stay tuned to Hilaal Live. We'll be back after this break.